Oh boy, we got news to talk about. Recently, Turtle WoW made a fairly crazy move. In spite of being under insane legal fire, the RICO Act, they basically stuck their head above the trench and they have sent a shot back. With that being done, the ball is now in Blizzard's court. Now, of course, they didn't fire a legal shot back. They are still an illegal server, and they actually just publicly admitted to that. But that's because their plan is not to win the legal battle. It is to win the public relations battle. Oh, we are going to get into some spicy quotes in this video, including ones from current Blizzard leadership. Okay, Turtle posted an open letter, and it sets out their case to become a legal licensed server. In fact, what they're doing is asking Blizzard to consider something way bigger, which is this: an entire framework to legalize private servers. And they make a surprisingly good case, until you look carefully, that is. But I'll tell you what they also did. They missed a trick, because we found a quote from Holly Longdale in her past job that they could have used as an absolute slam dunk. But it seems they didn't do their research. Okay, first, the letter. Now, there is one other thing, and it's more important if you're, say, a Discord user, because Discord got hacked. That's just one of the many stories of data breaches and these security breaches, and even invasive people search sites that are a thing in America. They're too common, and they are why I use today's sponsor, Incogni, because Incogni helps me fight back. You see, whenever data leaks, data brokers harvest it, and they sell it on. It's how they earn money. And if you ever wonder how spam callers get your number, it's often that. Now, Incogni solves the problem by automating all the legal work you would otherwise have to do. And if you join at incogni.com/Bellular Warcraft, you get 60% off an annual plan. And the way it works is crazy, because you just enter your info, and then it works. That's really it. You see, you've got a legal right to have your data taken down, but that means hours of paperwork, and it's not permanent. Incogni, once it has your data, automatically scans brokers, sends takedown requests, and adds you to suppression lists. It does that automatically, and it will consistently rescan the brokers to ensure your data is kept down. Just take a look at my dashboard, it's pretty cool. 214 takedowns sent, 1 in progress, 213 completed, and I am on 26 suppression lists, which is pretty damn good peace of mind. And over at incogni.com/Bellular Warcraft, you'll get 60% off an annual plan, so you can also have that peace of mind. And of course, the easiest way is to just click that link down below. The letter opens with them painting themselves as loving fans and artists. They're pouring their soul into expanding Blizzard's universe. And over 7 years, they say they found out how to add replayability to an MMO world. Now, the first 2 paragraphs are basically an advert for Turtle, but with a very specific point, which is this final line: "Mysteries of Azeroth, quote, feels like a home that always welcomes players back." And what they're doing here is planting an idea for later. Then we get to the next part, and that talks about modding, how it is embedded in gaming's culture, harnessing community passion, all of that stuff. And they really go here. They use the real flowery language, talking about devoted fans enriching games with diverse perspectives and innovative ideas. And they argue that Blizzard should embrace fan content as a testament to WoW's legacy, instead of alienating them. Now, you'll notice that thus far in the letter, they're being very nice to Blizzard, very much saying, "Oh, guys, your world, it's the best." So, yeah, now that the glazing is done, they're switching gear. So it's time for the actual asks, or, maybe what we would call a shit sandwich. Okay, quote, "Unfortunately, unlike other studios," is how they begin their next paragraph. They go on to talk about how Blizzard doesn't let these beautiful fan-made testaments to WoW operate without, quote, legal conflict. So they're asking for a licensing framework, and they basically say that all players would be deeply grateful if Blizzard would let Turtle and other servers do their thing legally. Going further though, by doing that, they say it will let Blizzard control the IP, right? Because if there's a licensing framework, then it does get to be on terms that Blizzard would agree to. So basically, they want Blizzard to get their control, but still allow fans to innovate and have things be above board. And they say this would, quote, enhance the gameplay experience and strengthen the bonds between developers and players. So, all nice cordial stuff, I guess. Now, this whole WoW as a home idea comes back at the end of their letter. That's because, per Turtle's argument, with something like this happening, WoW would remain a true home for everyone who loves it. Now, the genius of this letter's positioning, basically, is that it's hard to argue with, many of their points, at least in first glance. Turtle is clearly a really good version of Classic Plus. Like, actually good. This is not me randomly glazing. It's pretty well developed. They've done some smart stuff. Because look, if it wasn't good, it would not be as popular as it is. It essentially ticks all the boxes. It honors classics art style, writing, game design, it's updated regularly, the community is mostly clean of the usual bullshit, like modding as an example. People continually say to me they do a good job of taking down bots. And it's also supported by real GMs, something that, real World of Warcraft isn't so much these days. Now, there are just a few issues, though, when we kind of go into the details. Like the small fact that Turtle have continuously poked the bear, right? Like they've actually been overtly aggro to Blizzard's social media. They have been acting too big for their boots. They've been running paid advertisements. The whole donation store thing. So for them to do all of that and now be sort of licking Blizzard's boots again does make it look like an attempt to get goodwill and to get their way. Which, it quite obviously is. And as nice as their embellished vision of a cooperative future sounds, there's a lot of these things called facts that really haven't changed. They are still an illegal server hiding from US jurisdiction, and the owners have been accused of all sorts of things, from tax evasion to gold selling to hijacking other private servers to ram cash shops into them. And this basically reads like them trying to cut a deal, but doing so while having no real ground to stand on other than, of course, you and your ability to be displeased at Blizzard. But let's continue with their letter first, because they make some compelling comparisons. Their major argument is precedent, and they point to 8 other examples of studios that have found success with community servers or modding. So let's go through those. There's Daybreak, who currently own EverQuest. They struck a deal with Project 1999, an emulated EverQuest server that plays exactly as it did in 1999. Then there's Rockstar. Not always the nicest bunch to modders, but they acquired 5M. And that was a fairly brilliantly engineered platform for basically custom multiplayer GTA 5 servers. And with Rockstar acquiring them, now it's official, and it's gigantic. Truly gigantic. Next, they look at NCSoft. They eventually granted a license to Homecoming. Now, Homecoming is a secret server for City of Heroes that started after the real game was shut down. Now, those are the most comparable examples, but they do bring up other things. As an example, Bethesda's support for Skyrim modding, Valve's open sourcing the Source engine, which led to Counter-Strike and Team Fortress, both of which, by the way, started as community mods. Then they point towards Epic Games, who of course added in creative mode for Fortnite, and they released old Unreal Tournament source code. Then there's Microsoft's handling of Minecraft with servers like, say, Hypixel and Mineplex. All pretty cool stuff. And then finally, there is EA. Yes, the lovely folks at Electronic Arts, who actually did cooperate with Kyber. And Kyber, by the way, is a project that completely revitalized Battlefront 2 servers. So these are 8 solid examples of, as they put it, publishers working alongside fan-ran ecosystems. That all sounds great in paper, but, well, we cover gaming news over on our other channel, and that means we're fairly familiar with these examples. And, well, none of them are quite what Turtle claim they are. Who needs details anyway? So let's get rid of the ones that just aren't similar at all. Kyber is a custom server platform for Battlefront 2. Their lead developer was hired by EA as a security consultant, and this happened after finding and disclosing a major vulnerability in their account system. Of course, being part of Kyber almost certainly helped, but EA have actually never said anything publicly about Kyber. I mean, using Kyber does require owning the game, so there's no potential loss to Electronic Arts. There is only gain. Same obviously goes with Skyrim mods and everything else for Bethesda. I mean, there's no cost to Bethesda to let those things exist, and the majority of mods are unpaid. It's basically just Bethesda getting to sell their games for infinity off the back of, loads of mods. It's pretty great for them. Now, obviously, attempts to monetize those mods have, often went a little bit funky. Then there's the Valve thing they bring up, which is rather cute because it's about an engine being open sourced and fan projects being unlifted. Well, the problem with Turtle is intellectual property infringement. WoW-like games with a different IP are never truly in the conversation here. It's a bit weird. Then the Fortnite example is, all in the official Fortnite client. The payment comes as an engagement-based portion of what Epic Games themselves earn, which basically is their entire user-generated content platform, which is a major pillar of their business. Then there's Unreal Tournament 99 source code. Well, yeah, that's source code from an unmaintained and dead game. Irrelevant. Minecraft servers are actually similar though, and that's where things will get interesting. However, they are based on ownership of the game. And, well, the thing that makes the servers different in many ways are the mods. And because Minecraft has never had official servers to begin with, well, Mojang don't really have anything to lose. I suppose this is me talking mostly about PC. There's obviously the likes of Minecraft Realms and other platforms, but you get the point. Now that leaves 3. Let's start with GTA 5 and 5M. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's an unbelievably long story, but using it as a positive example is really not as smart as they think it is. So basically, the original developer found incredible success quickly, and then they hired other people. And this is where they went wrong, because one of the new hires eventually went behind everyone's backs to sell the whole project to Rockstar. And you know, it's Rockstar. They will absolutely play ball with something like that. And the more you learn about this story, the worse it gets, because by doing that, they also doxed all of their contractors, which was, a fairly lovely thing to do. And they handed over all of their financial records, which obviously caused chaos. This resulted in the project owner being bullied into agreeing, and then they basically all just felt really shortchanged. And then infighting actually got that lead developer fired. So, chaos. And after all that chaos, the project is now ran by Rockstar, and it's rapidly degraded without the passion of its old lead. They had something beloved, right? But the process of selling out basically destroyed it in short order. So, yeah, sounds good, and I guess no real fault of Rockstar's either. Tensions arising and bad apples basically spoiling the bunch for a payout. Next then, NCSoft, City of Heroes. This one was awesome and unprecedented. Homecoming was a secretive private server for the game that started in 2019, and that of course was replacing the official game which died in 2012. Now in January 24, Homecoming's owners revealed something huge, that they had a non-commercial license with NCSoft to run it officially. Again, non-commercial. Now, NCSoft have zero current interest in City of Heroes. They don't give a shit. They're never really gonna use it, or at least they can't see themselves using it. So sure, they're happy to let it run, but they still hold the IP, and Homecoming is free, and it is supported by donations, like with Turtle, just actual donations. They don't have the whole cash shop thing, because very often in private servers, the donation is, yes, to keep the server running, but it's also, the cash shop, and, well, allegedly, people get very, very, very rich off it indeed. Though there is another similarity between them and Turtle, and it is that they also develop new content for their game. But there's a key difference. It's completely volunteer. You see, as a part of their deal, developers and staff don't receive any compensation. No in-game compensation or otherwise, no money changes hands. So those donations are to meet the server costs, and if people were skimming a bunch of money off that, well, that would be in violation of the agreement. Now, on the other hand, Turtle operates like a standard business, just an illegal one. All of their staff are paid, and at least as far as we understand, paid rather handsomely. So the City of Heroes thing is similar on face value, but in reality, it is very, very different in ways that completely change how Blizzard would act, which obviously wouldn't be like NCSoft, because Blizzard actually uses WoW. Okay, next. It's time for the spice. I know, I've teased you twice about a statement from Holly Longdale, so let's get to it. EverQuest's Project 1999. If Turtle wanted to make an impression, they really should have led with this statement. Now, you'll know Holly Longdale as the executive producer and vice president of World of Warcraft. But before that, she was an executive producer at Daybreak, and she was responsible for EverQuest. Now, in an interview with PC Gamer around EverQuest's 20th birthday, they brought up EverQuest progression servers, which are basically the same thing as WoW Classic. And they point out that Project 1999 is a different version, like literally exactly the game as it appeared in that year. Now, this was part of her answer. I'm just going to start, just a big old quote. Here it is. The Project 1999 guys are not malicious or trying to steal our money, so we just have an agreement in place that they don't launch stuff around the same time we do. Wow. A statement like that from Holly. Come on, Turtle. You could have used that to get people on your side. They could loudly say, look, Holly permitted this, but she didn't permit Turtle. She is a hypocrite. Except for one little tiny small detail. And you probably know what I'm about to say. The little detail is that Project 1999 is non-profit, and in their legal agreement with Daybreak, they're not allowed to make any money. I can't find any reference to volunteering, but a few years back they were accepting specific hardware donations, and in a post about that, a project manager said the donations cover, quote, most costs. That might cover development costs, but I think it's safe to say they're not raking it in. So, none of these are actually applicable to what Turtle is. Turtle WoW is a for-profit World of Warcraft competitor. And of course, with an official Classic Plus very obviously in the works, there is little to zero chance that Blizzard would even respond to all this stuff. I mean, even without getting into the shady stuff behind the curtain, which, there's a lot of talk going on about that. Well, basically, Turtle are a direct competitor, and they do solicit cash shop donations. And this means we can put everything together, because what Turtle are obviously trying to do here is drum up support, but they want to do that by painting a totally false picture, because all of those examples are surface-level similarities at best that are materially different, and none of those licenses that those other developers and companies have anything to do with people making money and profit and paid developers, right? And certainly they're not running advertising campaigns against each other. And ultimately what they do is paint a totally false picture of this type of licensing agreement being normal and to everyone's benefit. It is not normal, and you can see through those examples how it is rather specific. So essentially, it's not nearly as simple as Turtle makes it out to be in their letter, and Blizzard, by agreeing to this, would have a massive amount to lose, and all they would really have to gain is some goodwill. And let's be serious, even if Blizzard did, Microsoft would, not give a toss about goodwill. So, what's going to happen? Here's the frustrating reality. If Blizzard said yes, it would almost definitely be under similar circumstances to the other examples that I've listed here. Now that would mean the Turtle WoW would not be Turtle WoW. There is zero chance that Blizzard would allow this to exist and be a free-to-play thing that people could easily go and do. Because then that would be a direct competitor with World of Warcraft. That would be free. So what would have to happen is that private servers would need to turn into public servers, and they would need to exist under a World of Warcraft sub. And I don't need to tell you how much damage that would do to all of them. I mean, if developers got paid at all, it would have to be an absolute pittance from Blizzard's perspective. Even if Blizzard miraculously did allow arguably non-competing servers to run for free, like say Ascension, they wouldn't just let the devs rake in loads of money. Just like NCSoft and Daybreak, it would all have to be on a volunteer basis. A corporation like Microsoft could never agree to anything else, so you would be fully limited to developers who work on passion alone. Obviously, passion cannot pay your rent, and that would drastically limit the pool of people who would be working on these games. And even if all of that stuff somehow worked, Blizzard would then have to support some type of server browser, and they'd then have to become legally responsible for what servers actually host, and that would include things like old, insecure clients. Basically, once this is real, every line of legal overhead is relevant. Every penny, needs to be counted. And, well, think about support. I mean, if these are things you can access under a World of Warcraft subscription, then there would be implications on Blizzard supporting those products. So basically, running a private server would become a whole load more difficult. So in every way, even if Blizzard said yes, I think it would make no one happy. But that doesn't mean that we're left with nothing, because we are actually left with something. Right, this sounds a bit defeatist, but it's kind of true, and that is that the current situation is probably the healthiest for private servers, let's be real. I mean, they are emulators that Blizzard cannot legally take down, right? That emulation side is actually pretty good. Everyone knows where to find the old clients, so developers who want to run fan-made projects can just go and do that. Because right now, you can just run these things in secret and experiment with whatever type of gameplay that you want. Turtle are only bringing this up because they bit Blizzard's hand, and they got caught. They obviously want to keep bringing in players. I think they also obviously want to keep on bringing in, donations. Their whole donation store that's funding a big paid development team. And I think they're hoping that this letter makes them look like the good guys. And, well, makes Blizzard look like the villains. I mean, come on, who would ignore an olive branch that is full of so much glazing? Now, I think this is a bit of a mistake, because even if Turtle is a great server, and by all accounts it is, I think it's overstepping by trying to be legit here. Because being legit is more likely to kill it than if they just, stay hidden in Russian servers and duck the lawsuit, which they can just keep on doing, right? So I would not hold my breath for an official response from Blizzard here, because there's no real answer that isn't playing directly into Turtle's hands, which, let's be real, is probably how Turtle architected all of this. So Blizzard will sit quietly, and they will use the legal system to do whatever it can to hunt this stuff down. So ultimately, my view is that this is a PR stunt that is basically designed to get more people into Turtle and, probably to draw out more donations. I think that's probably what it is. Yeah, there you go. And if you want to know why they are sort of hunting them down in the first place, if you want to know how the RICO sort of legislation is involved, basically the mafia busting legislation, well, it's a crazy story, it's deep, it's dark, it's fun, and you can watch our video on it right over here.